Hey everybody, it's Peter, and in this video we're going to look at the Z400 versus the Z650, or Z400 versus Z650, and we're going to kind of look at it in the perspective of maybe a new rider, but most importantly we're going to look at these two from the perspective of exactly what makes them different, because I think a lot of videos leave out a lot of the differences between these two, and that's what I want to cover, because some of the differences are just, cosmetic and it is what it is, but some of the differences actually make a difference to how you ride and what your experience is riding these bikes. So I want to make sure that I point out not just what's different, but how that's going to affect you, and I'm hoping that'll help you choose the best bike for you the first time, rather than having to buy the wrong bike and move to the right bike. So I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports, and if you're interested in these bikes, I have complete access to the entire Kawasaki lineup, in fact the entire vehicle lineup here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals. And if you're interested in these, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments the things you want to know about them, or if you have experience with them, you can let us know that as well, because we want to create a database of information here. But the benefit of having access to all of these vehicles is I can come back and answer your questions on future videos. So in this video in particular, I'm going to answer a couple questions that came up through comments on other videos that I've done on these vehicles, so that we can continue to build more and more information so that you can have the best resource available to you to make sure you choose the best bike for you. So let's get going with the review. We're going to start with the 400. So starting with the Z400, this is the bike I most often recommend to newer riders, whether it's the Z400 or the Ninja 400. I've done comparisons between the two of them so you can sort of see the differences there. They're essentially the same bike, although some of the differences do make a difference to you how you ride, and I pointed those out in that video. But Z400 is a very common suggestion for a beginner's bike, and you can see it really doesn't look a whole lot different from the Z650, which I like. It used to be that smaller displacement bikes really looked like smaller, wimpier, weaker bikes. And the cool thing about the Z400 that they do well, and if you look at it amongst, good experienced riders, reliable sources, they'll tell you that this is still an enjoyable bike to ride when you're an experienced rider. And that, I think, is a really key piece. While the look is right, and by having the right size tires, even the right width tires for the most part, you also have enough power to do everything you want to do, but it's very manageable power. So if you eventually want to head to the racetrack and learn how to ride, this is a better, probably, in my opinion, a better bike to learn on than that bike, because its limits are a little bit lower. But on the street, it gives you everything you need. So I don't use the term outgrow a bike. I think, an experienced rider can absolutely enjoy this, but I do understand that some riders are going to want more speed, and that is what the Z650 offers, in addition to a few other things. So we're going to talk a little bit about these, because for the most part, driving these on the road, you've got all the speed you need. Acceleration is not that far apart on these two, but the way they feel and the way they ride is going to be different. So we're going to start looking really in depth on this one to get a sense of what this is, and then show you exactly what's different here and what stands out and how that works. So let's get a little more in depth with the Z400 right now. So the Z400 is an entry-level bike here in the Kawasaki lineup, but they do a few things that kind of make it look pretty good. You've got the green frame here. Green frame is new for 2023, the paint scheme, and that makes it look a lot like the 2022 Z900. It's actually the same color scheme as that. So from a distance, you've got a cool looking bike. When you get up close, you do notice it's a little bit more compact. Now, being a compact bike actually gives you some advantages and some disadvantages. So let's just jump on it right now. First of all, compact is also lightweight. This is about 48 pounds lighter than the Z650, which is quite nice. Seat height is also low, and the only time you feel it being a little more compact bike compared to the Z650 is it's a little more compact in wheelbase, about a couple inches shorter or so. And overall seating position, you could have this seating position on just about any bike. You are a little bit lower to the ground. Where I notice that little bit of compact stuff is I have size 11 feet, and my heel is a little bit close to this heat shield on top of the exhaust. That's a common thing you're going to hear about this bike. When I ride it, it's not in the way. It's just, where your foot is going to sit when you're riding. It's just not a problem at all. But when you sit on in the showroom and you're sitting upright, you may find your heel comes in contact with that. Again, it's a little closer, but it's not a problem. So that's the negative, which really isn't a negative. What you end up with a strength in this, by being compact, it is a really unique bike to ride. And like I said, because they didn't make it look wimpy and cheap, they put quality components on this thing, you end up with a bike that's a lot of fun to ride. And the benefit really is that lightweight and compact size creates a real immediate handling bike. And if you think about sort of the car world, You know, there's lots of sports cars that are heavy and powerful and that kind of thing, but they're never as fun to ride as something like a go-kart. A go-kart's smaller and it's immediate, so even though a go-kart is slower, it can offer a lot more fun to ride than something like a regular economy car, which has more power, more whatever. So that's kind of what this is. It's designed for sport from the beginning. There's a whole lot of people that end up tweaking these up just a tiny bit and taking them to the racetrack, but even just learning on them at stock on a racetrack. And that's because the overall balance of this bike is good. The weight is down low, the handling is very immediate. You got a little bit narrower tires, 1 centimeter narrower front and rear than the Z650. I'm pointing over there because that's where the Z650 sits. But you still have the same diameter, same look, everything else. So you end up with a bike that if you move to a bigger bike, you can never replicate the feel of this bike. And if you want a motorcycle that looks cool, which this does, and is a blast to drive around, that's what this one is. If your idea of having fun is purely speed, you'll probably miss out on some of the joy of this bike by not considering it. But if your idea of getting on a motorcycle and having fun is what you want to do, this bike delivers that all the time. So there's your seating position right there. Let's dig into the front wheel. We're going to go front wheel on back so that we have something to compare to the Z650. So a modern sport bike of any displacement has a 17-inch diameter front wheel, and that's what this has. And again, that's part of what contributes to it looking like a decent bike. Now, what's cool on this is when it's leaning this way, kickstand side down and brake side up high, your disc diameter is actually about 1 centimeter larger than the Z650 and actually 1 centimeter larger than most bikes in the Kawasaki lineup, including most of the sport bikes. A lot of them are sort of a little bit, tiny bit smaller. So you have the look here of a great huge brake. And again, it's bigger than the Z650. The difference with the Z650 is the Z650 has an other disc on this side. So looks-wise, you've got all that look right here. Performance-wise, this is a very, very light bike, about 367 pounds. If I'm wrong, I'll throw the correction on the screen. But yeah, 367 pounds or so. This is something that does not need crazy brakes because it's also not going 270 kilometers an hour. So this brake is very good for what you need, and styling-wise, it looks cool. It's got the pedal style look to it as well. But there are some functional pieces here as well. A lot of bikes, the older bikes, will have sort of more of a one-piece design. This is a floating caliper there. That's a proper race bike thing. It can take heat and expand and contract, and that's what you want. It also has an ABS ring, and I really recommend ABS for newer riders. As you're learning to ride, you got to figure out that threshold braking when you're pulling on that front brake. If you have ABS, what happens if you brake too much? You feel the chatter in your handlebars. What happens if you don't have ABS is the front wheel locks. And if the front wheel locks, for the most part, you're going down. So it's a little easier to find your limits here. You never want to rely on ABS, but you do want to have it there for when you're, all your rider trading sometimes goes out the window when a panic situation happens. So you can grab on the brakes, the front wheel's not going to lock, it's going to use the ABS to pulse on that. And that's what this little ring is in here. It's just sort of the sensor ring. The sensor's right there. It reads that this wheel is moving different speed or same speed as the rear wheel, and it makes decisions about which brake to pulse and how much and that kind of thing. So ABS brakes, good size wheels and tires, like I said, just 1 centimeter narrower, which can give a little bit more flickability, that left to right turning. It's a minor difference, that centimeter difference is a minor difference, but in theory, that's what it does offer as well. Taking a look at the heart of the bike here, this is a twin-cylinder 400cc bike that makes as much power as many 500cc bikes out there, and it's lighter weight. In fact, this used to be a 300cc bike, and they changed it to a 400cc and made it lighter at the same time. So they added power, and the overall engine was lighter, and that's kind of why this is sort of a legendary engine in the lightweight sports bike, because it's extremely reliable, which is a big piece to it. It can really be driven hard, which is nice, and of course liquid cooled. This is a fully modern engine here. You've got your exhaust coming out here. A lot of the emissions control is down here. This one does have an exhaust coming up the side, which of course gives you that traditional look of a regular motorcycle. The Z650 actually stops underneath, and that's because really a lot of your emissions control is down here more than up there. So pretty modern engine, pretty simple stuff. I could go on and on about it, but basically what you need to know, lighter weight than many others and more power than many others, and that's really the holy grail of motorcycling right there. So let's take the same look at the Z650 here, and you're going to see some of the same things and some of the differences. Again, 2 inches or so longer creates a little extra space, and we'll jump on over here. I believe the seat height might be a little taller, but it doesn't feel any more intimidating to someone like me. Again, I'm 6 feet tall, so it's a little bit different there. You do notice some differences in pushing this around. It's, like I said, it's about an extra 48 pounds according to the website. The website does basically a wet weight. It has 1 liter more tank space in the Z650 here, so in theory that's 1 liter more fuel weight if it's a wet weight. But the idea is the seating position feels very similar. Maybe a hair more leaned over here. I think the 400 was just a little bit back, but again, very, very similar. What you're seeing here is my heel cannot come in contact with an exhaust because the exhaust is not there. It also gives you a little more fancy swing arm down here, just a little prettier to look at. I don't think it's any different on the road. But you do have that, and like I said, that extra weight you feel while pushing it around is not something you really feel driving down the road, except for the playfulness of the 400 is very much evident as part of its character. Whereas this, it's a little more serious in what it does in some ways. It's got a little more power. So that one has about 45 horsepower. They don't list horsepower on Kawasaki's North American websites, but generally agreed upon that's around 45 or so. This one's about 67. So you are moving up, even though it's just 250cc, it is a jump in power. And again, they can gear it differently because of that. So we'll talk about that as well. So overall here, general comfortable seating position. Let's take a look at that front wheel, because in addition to the brake being different, there is another difference I want to point out. So let's start there and continue to take the same look on this bike. So taking a look at the front wheel area over here, suspension design is the same. I think there's 0.2 inches more travel on the front here. They have identical travel in the rear. And you can see this disc down here. Now again, this disc is about 1 centimeter smaller, but there's 2 discs. And there's really no getting around it. You're gonna have more stopping power on this bike because the second disc is going to add more power. So even though this bike is a little faster, it's really about having probably a little bit better braking performance. So everything else is here the same. You can't see the ABS ring here simply because it's on the other side on this bike. So still has ABS front and rear. Again, basically everything's the same. You got a little sticker around here. That's the only difference, just a style type thing. The one thing that you do have here that is worth considering for the upgrade outside of that power is you have an upgraded tire here. So they're both Dunlop tires. They're actually both Dunlop Sport Max tires, but this is Dunlop Sport Max, the Road Sport 2. It is an upgraded tire over the Z400. Now again, you can always upgrade tires. There's lots of tire sizes and that kind of thing, but right out of the factory, you are getting an upgraded tire here, and that's worth mentioning. So taking the same overall view here, technology-wise, the engine is the same. It's a 2-cylinder twin, inline twin, or parallel twin they call that, and it is liquid cooled. So technology-wise, not a whole lot of difference going on here. Style-wise and functionality, a little bit different. You've got the exhaust that comes underneath here like that, and then it ends right here. So you can see it sort of ends right there. Gives you a fancy swing arm that you can see. It gets it out of the way of your feet, so that's just something that's cool. Again, all of your emissions control is down here. A lot of time a pipe on a bike really doesn't do anything for emissions control. So what this does, in addition to looking a little different and in my opinion actually looking kind of cool, is it moves the weight down low. There's no weight up high and outside there, and keeps all of this heavier stuff down low, which contributes to the handling of the bike. So again, the other bike handles very well. It's a very lightweight bike, but as this gets heavier, if you were to bring that up, in theory that would raise some center of gravity. So all your center of gravity is down low, contributes to handling. You're also going to notice that both the front seat and rear seat, driver and passenger, they have rubber mounted pegs here, which again can contribute to vibration reduction. So again, a little bit more luxury stepping in here. The 400 only has the steel pegs here, so a little bit of a step up that way. But overall, you can see frame design very similar. The tank, has, like I mentioned, is an extra liter of tank space here. Fuel efficiency is probably a little bit worse as well. That depends mostly on how you're riding on a motorcycle, but an extra bit of tank space there as well. So similar look here. Let's keep moving through. So we're back at the Z400 here. Let's take a look at the controls, the gauges here. So as you start this thing up or turn it to the on position, you can see everything come to life. To be blunt, this is the same control that they used to use on something like the Z900 in the past, but it's been updated on that bike. So It's a little unique on this bike. Technically, it's a little more out of date, and I'm filming at a weird angle here. You can't actually read the bottom here. That's just the clock down there, so I apologize that I'm just trying to get some of the glare out of this. You can see that digital sort of tack that came alive there. It's got a manual readout with a digital tack there. This is a different dash than the Ninja 400, so that's one of the big differences between these two bikes. Key is here is right below on here. We'll show you on the Z650 how it's a little different. Basically, the functionality is very good. Trip A, Trip B, and odometer is right there. And then if you come over to this side, you have on the very bottom of the screen, which again you can't see, is your fuel efficiency. So that's instant fuel efficiency, average fuel efficiency, the range, so distance to empty kind of thing. And then you have the clock in there. So good functionality, not too fancy. One thing I really like is you have a gear indicator very clear. If you're a newer rider, it's just nice to have a gear indicator. I haven't had gear indicators on all my new bikes, and I've always sat there a couple times, am I in second or am I in third gear? You know, you pull that clutch in, you glance down, you realize you don't really know because you can't tell by the revs. So this is a really nice feature to have for a new rider, especially as you're you know, coming out of a corner knowing exactly, or releasing that clutch, you want to know exactly what gear you're in. So just a really nice thing to look for is that gear indicator. But like I mentioned, this is a little bit dated. The Z650 has an update. Let's go take a look at that. All right, we're zoomed in really close here on the fancy TFT display of the Z650. Now I kind of film it here on purpose. You'll see in my hand here towards the, in the reflection here, you're gonna see that white wall with a sign behind it. I kind of want to show how resistant this is to glare. You can see obviously there's a lot of glare in it, but when you turn that screen on, first of all, cameras don't film screens very well. Your eyes see it a lot better, and you can see right in here, there's really no glare once you have that, or I mean, you'll see glare in the camera, but there's really no issue with visibility, and of course, like I said, my eyes can see this much, much clearer. Now, I do have to step around here. I was trying to stay out of the shot here. We'll just try to do this again with me staying out of the shot. All right. You have the same functionality over here. So gear indicator there, your tachometer is up there, fuel gauge is in here. There's a fuel gauge on that one as well. I don't think I pointed that out. Clock is always visible. You've got temperature gauge there. So I think there's a temperature gauge over on that one as well. Anyways, let's get going on the details here. You have a selection switch over on the controls here, which we'll show you a little bit later. And I can switch the odometer right here from odometer to trip A to trip B and back to odometer. So that's what we saw before. And then on the bottom here, there's your instant fuel efficiency. There's your average fuel efficiency. There's your range. So again, all the same information so far. This one has average speed as well. And then you also have total time. So total time on, I guess, the bike at that point. 12-volt battery tells you where it is, which is nice to have, especially as if you winterize the bike or something like that, having a sense of where that is. And then back to instant fuel efficiency. So that's just the beginning. The other thing you're going to see in this display is traction control. Now, traction control is another big reason to step up to this bike. Although it has more power, it also gives you several levels of traction control. So this one's got 2 levels and off. We'll show you what that is. Actually, I don't think I can get it to work on this bike. Oh, there we go. So traction control level 1, I thought I had to maybe start the engine. Traction control off. So it's off, 1, and 2, and you can select that from the same handlebar. So we're gonna leave it in the 1 position. I think on this bike, you drive around with it in 1, that's kind of where you want it, gives you some protection. Level 2, more for the rain, but again, if you're a newer rider, just put it in level 2, and it'll protect you from, you know, slipping out, doing various things. So, you know, obviously it can contribute to helping you. It's not gonna save you all the time, but it can contribute, and that's nice to have, again, fully displayed all the time on this 650cc bike. The other benefit with this TFT display is it does have an app connection to Kawasaki's Rideology app. That app does give you some functionality to look at your bike. The more advanced bikes are going to have more features than this. I have to do a video on the Rideology app yet, but I'm waiting for the top level bikes to get here so I can do a little bit more time with that to show you here's what the basic bikes do, here's what the advanced bikes do. So we'll have to get that up in the future. The other nice thing is you can do some different things like programming here. If you wanted this to, you know, start flashing at 8,000 RPM right here to let you know that, hey, you're near red line, you can get that that tactile start flashing for you. So you can do a little extra things, and it looks cool. You can also invert the colors, and to be honest, I kind of forgot how to do that right now, but all the black can be white, all the white can be black. It's very simple to do quickly from your handlebar. So it is a nice display, and it does give you extra information here on the Z650. We're back on the Z400 here, and I want to show you the controls. First of all, clutch lever. It is a slipper and assist clutch. That makes it very lightweight. That also gives you a little extra protection against an aggressive downshift. It'll allow the clutch to slip instead of the wheel. We'll talk about that in a future video, but both these bikes have that, so you've got a nice little safety feature with the clutch, and both clutches are very light. There's a little trigger right here. If I pull that, that will flash your high beams. That's really great to get attention. Both these bikes have LED headlights, which is really nice as well. We'll try to show you them a little bit later in the video. You can turn your high beams on like that. Otherwise, just keep it like your headlights. Signal switch. Again, all of this control stuff feels very good, and there's a horn down here. One thing about the signals here, they are incandescent lights on the 400. They're LED lights or LED signal lights on the 650. You're going to see a little different control on the 650, so let's jump right over to that right now. All right, over here on the Z650, again, same idea, light clutch here. You do notice though that both the levers here, brake lever and clutch lever, are adjustable for reach. So you can push this out, you can spin this around, and it can move closer in or out, that kind of thing. So smaller hands, larger hands, not a problem here. You can really customize it to where you want. And you know, it's one of those things I don't really think about, but on my personal bike, because it is adjustable, I was able to move it just in a little bit for my hands over where I thought I would want it. And it's just nice to have that flexibility. It is a set it and forget it kind of thing. Whoops. Oh boy, sorry about that. You know what, I'm gonna keep filming. Sorry about that, I hit the camera there. You do also have a trigger switch over here that I can't get on camera, just the angle I'm at, so that's exact same. This is the exact same, this is the exact same, this is the exact same. So horn, signals, headlights, trigger switch, all exact same. Where you have a difference here is you have hazard warning lights here, so I can switch that on. And again, there is an LED signal lights all the way around on this one. You can see them here, a little different style. And then this is that selection switch. So the selection in the middle controls your cruise control for the most part. There's other things, or sorry, not your cruise control, boy. The selection in the middle controls your traction control. Like I said, we select that to get your traction control on and off, and then you can go up or down in the settings. This one controlled the upper level, so that was the odometer, trip A, trip B, and this one controlled the lower settings, which was fuel efficiency, battery, all those kind of things, range to empty, that kind of thing. So you have the upper display, lower display, and if you don't hit the selection, this one does your upper display, this one does your lower display, the selection button does your traction control. So very easy to intuitively use while you're riding. You know, again, a little bit of upgrades here on the Z650. I briefly mentioned the headlights that are LED. Let's just show them to you. If they're not identical, they're very close. You can see that there. We got the LED light on there. And of course, we'll turn this one on as well, LED light on there. Both of them have that trigger switch here, which we can flash the high beams there. One's aimed a little closer to your screen there, so it may look brighter, that kind of thing. And then signal lights here, I can only do one at a time, but you can see they're incandescent lights. Let's throw the hazard lights on here because you can do both at the same time. LED signal lights here. Again, same basic design. It is nice to have the LED signals. Not every bike has them, including something like the Z900 RS that I drive, which is a higher trim level than this, does not have the LED signal lights in Canada. So around the world markets, you may see LED signal lights on some bikes. Just so you know, these are Canadian bikes. That's how these ones come. You know, again, very good headlights. The nice thing about a LED headlight is not just that it looks pretty cool. That whiter light is closer to daylight in color, so that allows your eyes to identify what it sees because it's more familiar lighting to your eyes. It just makes it a little easier to identify things. It feels not just brighter, it feels like you have better visibility with an LED light. And again, that little trigger can really help get you attention. And because these are Z-Class bikes, you can move the handlebars and direct that headlight to people at a stoplight or something like that, really kind of get some extra attention. So really good lighting on the front. Let's take a look at the lighting on the back as well. All right, lighting on the back, let's start with the 400. You've got this one here, pretty traditional light over here. It is an LED light, so if we grab the brake lever there, instant on, instant off. I really kind of like the upgrade here on these Z models. The Z model and the Ninja actually have the same light, but you can see here, let me see if I'm filming it correctly. Yeah, exactly. It looks like a Z model there, or if I zoom into that, maybe I can do that a little bit. It looks a little bit more like a Z, so let me just go right in there. And yeah, it's hard to film, but hopefully you can sort of see it there. When you hit the brake light though, on this and the Ninja, they both look a little bit more like an X, so a style upgrade more than a safety or functionality upgrade, but it is kind of cool to see this light right here. So I've pointed out a lot of key differences, but not necessarily every difference. This one does have a larger rear seat than this one, and that might make a difference to passenger comfort. Although to be fair, if you're buying either of these bikes, you're probably not taking a passenger for 6 hours on the back for a long tour. So it's gonna depend. And I don't see a ton of people with the 400s taking passengers for a very long time either. So I don't know that that makes a difference. But let's talk about the differences in these bikes. As far as what we've talked about. So first of all, the thing you need to remember about a 400cc bike is there's a lot of people out there that give poor opinions. When I started riding, a 400cc bike was not this. It just did not have the power. It was absolutely something where you would want more power. And you know, the term outgrow really came from that, as well as from the motorcycle industry telling you to start in this bike and then we'll sell you this bike 2 years later. I'm not into that. Buy the bike that works for you. This is a bike that works for a lot of people, but there are reasons to move to this from a practical standpoint. So let's just start with that TFT display. Like I said, it is the fully modern Kawasaki display. There's a few extra features on the top end bikes, but they basically use the same display here. So you're moving into something that is fully modern, fully up to date, and the LED signal lights show you that as well. Something like the tires. I mentioned the tires are better on the 650 than on the 400. That may not make a difference to you if you're not riding at the absolute limits. And motorcycle tires, they wear out a lot quicker than car tires. Those are things you can make a decision on as you're, a number of kilometers in. As they start to wear, you can decide if you want to upgrade. So again, that may not make a difference. Moving to this bike is going to give you a power difference, but the 0 to 60 times aren't that far apart when you think about it. It's the passing power that I prefer on the Z650. Once you get above that, highway speed, if you're driving along on the highway, let's say you have a speed limit where you're legally allowed to go 120 kilometers an hour, this one's still gonna have passing power at that, a little bit more so than that. And that's really where the engine makes a difference. But if you're spending most of your time, like most of us do on backcountry highways, you can certainly go on the highway with this, but backcountry highways, it probably isn't a huge benefit, and this one is playful. And when we talk about value for dollar, I don't think of speed for dollar, I think of fun for dollar. And this is one of the absolute best fun bikes for the dollar that you can get. And you have to keep in mind insurance rates are lower on 400, so the value equation goes a little bit better there. And you can rev out this bike more so than a super sport bike. Super sport bike, you rev out through first gear, you rev out through second gear, and you're well beyond the speed limit. This bike, you can rev out and shift. You will be shifting a little bit more in this bike, but to me, that's part of the fun. This bike allows you to have a little more legs, as they say. So a little bit more highway capability with that highway passing power. The Road Sport 2 tires, they are a better tire. They're a little bit grippier tire. You're not gonna power spin out with this one. You're not gonna probably power spin out with this one. The traction control is nice on this one, especially if you get caught in the rain. So again, I have a 4-cylinder 900cc motorcycle. The traction control there is useful because you can have too much power to spin the rear wheel. You're not really gonna run into that on dry pavement with this bike with these tires because they're very good, but on wet weather, traction control is very good. If you're not going to drive in wet weather, maybe the traction control doesn't have as much of a benefit with something like this and in this sort of power range. So all of those things make a difference. Couple inches longer in wheelbase here does give you a little bit extra space, feels a little bit like a larger bike. This one does feel compact, maybe a little bit less room to move around, but that also contributes to how fun it is in the handling department. This one's not necessarily less fun in the handling department, but this one is unique. It gives you that sort of, go-kart type feel, where this one has a little bit more of a mature bike kind of feel as well. Styling-wise, like you can see, the swing arm down there looks pretty cool. You probably won't notice a whole lot of difference in a straight swing arm down there. So those are just styling differences that maybe not make a difference to you. You will find fans of each bike on the comment section here and throughout the internet. A lot of people ask me, which one should I buy? And all I can tell you is buy the one you like. If you think speed is of the absolute most important thing, this one's probably a better first bike. But if you just want to have fun and learn your skills and get better and better and better, either of these will do well, and I always recommend this one to new riders because this is a bike where you can really improve your skill, improve your skill, improve your skill. And if you ever want to move on to a bigger bike, you've really developed your skills, you understand motorcycling from this bike, and you may not want to move on from either of these. I have lots of friends who buy a bike like this 400, and that's all the bike they need. So there's the basic rundown, showing you the differences, showing you what those differences do for you as a rider, but maybe I missed something. If there's something you want to know that I didn't cover, again, I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports, and they give me complete access to their entire motorcycle line, and my goal is to create a video database of information, things that you want to know. So feel free to subscribe, feel free to let me know in the comments the kinds of things you want to know, and again, if you ride either of these bikes, tell us about how you enjoy them, what you like about them. There's going to be some fierce debate, I'm sure, about which one's better, and that's fine, but buy the bike that works best for you, not the bike that works best for everyone else. And if you want to see them in person, there's 20,000 square feet of showroom space here. They're all here right now. It's early April, and riding season looks like, for me, it's going to begin next week here with the weather. So you can come see them in person, and that's a really good way to get a sense of what's going on. This is Canada's #1 volume Kawasaki dealer. They do a great job here. They're my go-to dealer. So thanks everybody for watching. Let me know what you think, and we'll catch you in the next one.